Good morning, self, Ohana, cosmos, infinite beings. It's Soul Dr. Nick here. It's March 15th, 2025, around 9:30 a.m. This is Magic Mirror Work. So this is from me, to me, by me, through me, as me. I'm not creating this for you, so there may be a lot of different things here. If you decide to stick around, join the ride, but recognize that I have other videos which I have actual themes, so if that's what you're looking for. And in this free-form way of doing things, my practice is to be authentic and transparent and be me. And sometimes things will flow, sometimes it won't. This morning I'm going to be talking about telepathy and Kai Dickens. I just finished listening to her Joe Rogan interview as well, and there's some stuff I'm really interested in. I'm going to talk about just the fatigue that's there. I'm going to talk about the exciting things. I'm going to talk about the, oh my God, the active disbelief. And maybe we'll even start there. I remember I love science fiction and fantasy. I loved reading all of Isaac Asimov's stuff, reading about robots, reading about Foundation, reading about psychohistory, being able to predict the future, being able to see large movements of things, being able to see people who could actually alter thoughts, the mental, the second foundation. And then loving Piers Anthony and Xanth and all these other aspects. And then taking a look at all this mythology too. And then going from that to science projects and the scientific inquiry method, going to medicine. I remember when I was in medical school, I was so busy reading books that at one point I lost dreams. I was like, what do I do again? And one of my dear friends, Nadia, that's when she introduced me to Game of Thrones. And when I read Game of Thrones again, I suddenly started dreaming. I was like, oh, thank you, because it was really painful to not dream or to feel like I wasn't dreaming. And now I get to read and play with whatever I want. And sometimes I go into reading the short stories like The Merchant and The Alchemist's Gate and just listening to things that are different. And when I do that, I remind myself of all these possibilities. And now, especially listening to the telepathy tapes, it's reminding me, how do I invite others to step outside of active disbelief? And it's me doing the ceremonial work and the breath and the medicine to realize there's so many more sensations than I can imagine. There's so much more knowing than I can imagine. People say, how do you say things? Why do you say things? I'm like, I don't know. And I don't see things the way I imagine other people to see them, whether they see beings, whether they see ancestors, whether they see dead people, whether they see auras, whether they see aliens, whether they see other realms. And I don't actively disbelieve that that's possible for them right now. And in letting go of that active disbelief, I don't actively disbelieve that it's going to be possible for me. It's just I haven't figured it out yet. And I don't have to be the one to figure it out either. There's so much more that I don't understand this world that I'm okay with. I used to think, oh yeah, I need to understand it for it to work, and that's all I think, therefore I am. And no, most of the things, and that's the childhood wonder, right? Like in terms of the mental aspect, most of the things that we've explained, the way that we've explained at least, a child doesn't understand it that same way. And it's because the way we've understood it requires all these stepping stones to get that level of understanding. And then we have this whole idea of savants, people who can just understand things right away. Well, part of it is because they get to understand it probably more from the universal law than the human law. And that's probably part of what happened with me with mathematics. I kept getting told the story, like when I was 3, I figured out addition, subtraction, multiplication, division in the bathtub. And then it was actually when I went to school, I lost some of my math. And I think part of it was they were trying to tell me, this is how you're supposed to do it, versus if I've already found a way, can I be allowed to have my way until it doesn't work anymore? And that's it with the children, a lot more. And I'm better at this in a way than many because I'm noticing this and I'm remembering this, is how do I just let them do their thing and be their thing unless something happens? I watched a child yesterday fall on the playground, and I acknowledged this fall. Like, I could see it was higher, it was scary, but every part of the fall was more controlled and safe than I could have imagined. There was no major injury that happened there. I was like, wow, it was so cool. And the fall was probably 2 or 3 times his height. I'm like, cool. These kids are so resilient, and how important is it to fall like that? And then to be reminded that you're safe. Yeah. So this active disbelief, part of it is the work that I'm doing right now, whether it's through breath or through the preparation work is to help soften the edges of active disbelief. Even the parts that are there, I still have parts of active disbelief that are here. How do I know that? Because there's some things that I'm just not noticing that I imagine. The first time I listened, I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And this comes back to the telepathy tapes. I'm listening to it now and just listening to the possibilities that are there. And I don't know if you've heard this stuff yet. Highly invite that you look at it. And the part to invite you with is actually just listen to it first and you'll see. If it turns you off, don't listen to it for now. Like, no one needs to be on this right now. I recognize that as I let go of active disbelief, it allows me to be an early adopter to a lot of stuff. And being an early adopter means I get to adopt different kinds of change sooner. Doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. And that's part of my own judgment too. I'm seeing like, oh, investing in things, this is right, this is wrong. I'm like, just take a breath. And then there's the judgment too I have sometimes. I'm looking at people telling me, oh, I'm following this person, I'm getting coaching with this person, it's going great. I'm like, do I want your life right now? It's like, who am I to judge their life? Sometimes I'm like, I was laying in bed today, laying outside of bed and thinking, oh my God, I'm tired. And people, if they're looking at my life going, do I want his life, right? Not even being able to sleep in his bed, getting woken up by his cat. Just sticking around, most of it around the same vicinity. Like, what is the adventure? What is all the stuff? And noticing that now, just getting a little self-depreciation. And then reminding myself, what am I doing this for? Why am I going through this process? And I forget. So again, let's do this magic mirror work. This is for you, Nick. I'm not trying to teach someone else something. And I may teach someone else as I'm doing this. Part of me right now is getting more clear in my own authentic self. I've been listening to the telepathy tapes, hearing about these non-verbal children, non-speaking children who have the ability to communicate telepathically, and not only that, have other abilities, whether it's seeing futures, whether it's knowing different skill sets, whether it's different languages, whether it's different ways they can be savants. And not even having to be savants, but just being in the space of love and light and caring. And I can't remember what the definition of love they used is. Anything that's more kindness, I think, in a way almost. And recognizing that I'm wanting to be invited, I'm requesting to be invited into this telepathic space called the Hill. And part of me doing this work right now, the magic mirror work, is preparation. It's preparation for not purging, but cleansing, clearing the barriers of my own soul, what it is that I'm hiding inside. Because I could tell that too, like when there's that idea of telepathy, it's like, oh my God, do I want someone to be able to see inside of me? And then I realize more and more than ever in my life, I am more comfortable with what's on the inside being on the outside. And it doesn't mean that I'm doing everything perfectly. The other day, felt like taking a look into more the porn side of things again. And I actually really stepped away from that for quite a few months. And it was like, interesting that these things come back sometimes. These things, I'm trying to make it a different part of me. Curiosities, inquisitive. There's a part of me that loves exploring different aspects. And can I come from that lens? Can I come back to that lens again? Because for me, I didn't want to, but I'm gonna get into it then because I was willing to actually say it loud. Pornography, it's been such an evil, shameful thing coming from the Catholic upbringing. I remember there was even videos that we watched, like, masturbation, all that stuff is wrong. And being a teenager, like, how confusing was that? And then finding magazines for the first time, videos for the first time, all that stuff. It's like, oh my God, I have to do this. I both want to, compelled to, and then I also don't want to, and then I'm also feeling guilty about it, and all the pieces in between, and then getting more disconnected from myself. It's how can I be this deviant versus, wait a second, this is what's going on right now. And every moment I get to choose. Like right now, I get to choose to be saying this to myself, through myself, in this way. And part of it in recording it is reminding myself, how do I let go of the part that hides? The parts that hide. And it's funny, like I'm more comfortable talking about enemas these days or other things like that. Oh yeah, I'll shove stuff in my butt, right? I'll shove stuff in my butt, let it all flush out. I'm drinking all this juice right now. This is the beet, carrot, apple, ginger juice. I'm gonna use a lot less apple next time because it's super sweet, probably because of the quality of the beets and carrots. Let's see here, what was I saying about that? Oh yeah, and this is flushing me out. And then last night, oh man, I was thinking I had shame around this. Oh, we went out to Wings because my son wanted some wings. It was an excuse to go to this wings pub that I keep looking at and going, oh my God, 28 different flavors, I gotta try some. And going there and trying the sickly sweetness of some of them. And the wings themselves were not quality meat. Like you could tell right away, they're like deep fried, not like that freshly fried, fresh oil kind of stuff. And so, disgusting. And I'm not going to put up a review to fault the place because there's enough people there that they know what they're there and they know what they're trying to get, right? But I had a curiosity about the place. I've been looking at the place for years. Every time I drive by Wings, I'm like, oh my God. And so can I thank myself now for having gone in finally to examine that? And I kept bringing it up as well with my beloved. Every time she's like, you got a choice. Like, I want to go here. I've got a coupon too. I had a 25% off coupon from this Community Values book. So super glad I went there because I wouldn't have. And she's like, I already knew what it was. Like, you did, but I didn't. And sometimes that's important for me to speak up and actually go after it. And it's so funny, right? It's a ridiculous little thing. It's a microcosm of what is going on now. It was safe enough to go. We could afford to go. I had a reason to go outside of just myself. And now that I've done it, okay. And now can I look back and definitely want to do an enema today to clear stuff out. But can I look back without feeling bad or guilty having had done it? And that's every aspect of life. And I was listening to them and it's like, you know, the whole idea of, I'm talking about Joe Rogan and Kai on the Joe Rogan podcast, talking about prosecutors, like their whole job is to prosecute. And when you forget the game that you're playing, you just start prosecuting to win, and then you withhold evidence or do other things, and then there's guilt. There's people that are sitting in jail because of you and your ego. And then eventually they get freed when this comes out, thankfully, but how many lives are ruined for that? And how many of us, including myself, often are forgetting what the real purpose of life is. And then I'm getting caught up in the game of the game of ledgers, the game of numbers. And it's funny hearing about the billionaires who are like, oh my God, I want that level. And that is even us right now. Like we're having the ability and freedom to live our lives currently the way it is. And where are we trying to get to? And in the midst of all this, taking a look at the reality, part of me is scared to ground myself, my beloved, back in the reality. Like right now, what is our burn rate? Our rate of spending money? What is our income rate? Our income rate in terms of, thankfully we have some disability insurance coming through. The work that I'm doing right now has slowed down almost to a halt for a lot of it. And even the stuff that I'm doing, I've forgotten to bill. I've got to bill some stuff. And the reason for all that stuff, the reason for all this is just to reset. What is it that we really want? How do I want to create this foundation? And I want the flow to come through. And how do I do it in a way where it's like, it makes sense? I'm not trying to scare people off. I'm saying all this right now because I'm trying to remind myself what the purpose of what I'm doing is. That's a piece that I can forget too. Like the purpose of this magic mirror work. At first, 12 days before the end of January, I got this new phone. And it's funny. It was inspired by new technology, right? I've got a new device. I want to try it out. I want to try recording stuff. So I'm going to record more. What am I going to talk about? I don't know. So let's just talk into it. And let's just start practicing talking because that's a piece. How do I get more comfortable just being in front of the camera, not trying so hard? And that evolved into, and it was, I think 12 days before, or actually, I think it was actually on Valentine's Day because I decided to do 12 more days. And I was like, wait a second, let's actually do this magic mirror work. And I can't remember how it came to be that it was magic mirror work now. But it's magic mirror work because I'm just trying to mirror myself. I'm not trying to do something. I'm going to post something every day. And oh yeah, I was thinking about Mr. Beast and just counting, like the ridiculous thing of counting from 1 to 1,000,000, for example. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do something that to me has no meaning. I'm not getting something out of. And even if I did that, I would get something out of it, because now when I'm doing the magic mirror work, I'm noticing sometimes I'm speaking into it, and sometimes, especially when I'm doing the things like reading affirmations or purpose or love lists or things, my mind goes off, and I can actually catch my mind and speak it out loud and say, this is where my mind went to, because my mind keeps going off. And even now, if you have been here, if you for some reason are still here, you're following all these different threads. And as you're doing so, this is a part of teaching, can you notice your own mind going off in different directions? That's part of the beauty of it. And I've been listening to the telepathy tapes in the background. I probably listened to the whole thing about 3 times now, but I've heard consciously only about a third of it maybe. And the point of that is part of me wants to tune into the energy, especially of these children, because they have so much to teach. Like the whole idea of the Matrix, downloading the whole idea, I know Kung Fu. I now believe that's possible. Now, I think it works differently than we think, because here's the thing I was saying. He only knew Kung Fu and could use Kung Fu inside the Matrix because the Matrix is purely mental. But in his outside the Matrix 3D body, if that's how we want to call it, he wasn't able to just be that Kung Fu master, because it's like his muscles were not there. Like he would still be like just trying to walk. And that's part of it for me. Like I may be able to download a program where I'm like, I know this. And when I'm in that realm, in the realm of just the mind, in the hill or in the psychic realm, I will have that. And then coming back out here, I may not sometimes. And that's partly when I'm in the space of medicine or facilitating or guiding. I almost feel like I have a different level of awareness, a different level of speaking, a different level of clarity. And then I come back here, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much cloudiness in it. And then being okay with both. And then not avoiding that clarity, because it heightens the contrast to the cloudiness. I think one leads the other. And it's right now, for example, I'm leading myself into more clarity of purpose, into more oneness, into more authenticity, into more integrity, where I'm like, okay, everything's flowing in the direction I want. And then while I do this, I'm reminding myself, my point is not to avoid the outside world. Reminding me right now as I look out to the outside world, I'm like, oh yeah, let's look at the gaze. It's raining a lot. It's misty, it's hazy. I'm looking at the mountains and the trees in the distance, and it looks beautiful like this actually. It looks even more beautiful sometimes than when it's sunny and clear. And I can see all the old rundown buildings more. I highlight myself on that versus the mistiness. And I've lost myself because I'm just imagining how the rain is helping to wash away all of my stuff, our stuff collectively. And then recently I'm hearing about different things. Hearing about different interventions, the Western medical interventions. I'm not saying them specifically because there's a part of me that doesn't want to be censored, and as well has a little bit of worry of what people will say. But let's just say a lot of the things I used to do as a Western medical doctor, I question whether it's the best first line of things to do. I don't question in some ways still that it's life-saving, that I didn't have times when I was so sick that the antibiotics were so important. But how did I get there? How many steps did I ignore? Let myself get sicker and sicker and sicker, be part of the game of you got to keep pushing through until I'm so sick, and then not realizing the possibility that this sickness could actually be part of the hyper resolution of something I've been avoiding for so long. So maybe I needed to actually clear up the sickness, because the thing that actually, if I'd cleaned up earlier, which is the way of life, of the way of being stuck in the patterns of beliefs, of stress myself, of being in trauma and re-traumatizing, wouldn't have gotten there. And nowadays, there's less frequent episodes of what I'd consider illness like that. And when I'm in it, even when I have like my snot changes color, like when it used to be when I changed color from clear to yellow or green, I knew I was so sick I need antibiotics. And now I'm really grateful I can trust it, going, you know what? I know that tool's still there, but let's keep pushing through this. Let's keep driving up the fever. When I've got a little bit of fever, I get under the covers and I keep breathing until it's hotter and hotter and hotter. Because like, thank you, fever, for helping drive this out. And I'm almost sad when I lose that coughing with the phlegm, because I'm like, I feel like it's just shedding stuff that wants to be shed. It's like that's been sitting down there in the lungs, where I imagine we hold on to grief and despair. And it's like, it's getting it to the surface and letting it go. It's like, okay, you don't need this debris now. Now you can breathe differently. And I was with someone the other day, I could notice the breathing. And as I was noticing the breathing, now this is coming back to me, it's like, what part of the breathing like that is because of the tightness in the body. And this is the thing I was working with another female the other day, the tightness of trying to hold the body a certain way. And part of it, as well as recently I've been listening and noticing how many of us criticize ourselves, even take a liking to criticizing ourselves. And in some ways it's challenging for me at times, because it's almost like trying to get me to agree with your critique of yourself. And I notice what I do automatically right now is I push back and say the opposite. Now, is that helpful? No. How do I know it's not helpful? It's not changing things. So what might be done differently? That is a question. And I'm starting to notice that for myself. There's some things that I do that I think it's the right thing to do. And then I can take a look now more so and say, what has been the outcome? Is it the familiar pattern that we're in? Okay, if it's a familiar pattern we're in, then why are we playing that same game? And sometimes it's important to play a game over and over enough till you realize, why am I playing this game? And I like that. I was reading just Tim Ferriss's 5 Bullet Friday, and one of the things he says, like, the best games have easy rules, but an infinite number of ways to master it. And I'm recognizing more and more, there's more and more games where the rules have gotten more complicated, and then it's not as much fun. It was great when it felt more simple. When it was a simple set of structured rules and so many possibilities. And those are the ones that everyone will pick up. Now, some games you want to be complex because there's certain people you'll play with it, and that barrier of entry is like, hey, this is our game now. And I've never gotten to play really a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. That's something that I do sometimes wish I'd done more of. Like, I think I was introduced to it once or twice when I was in Calgary, and I didn't get into it. I couldn't get into it yet because there's just so much going on. And then there's a part of my brain going, this is a waste of time. And it's funny as I imagine these wastes of time, like I was telling someone, I've recorded over 50 hours of video, I think, this year already. Is that a waste of time? Am I wasting my time by doing these things? And depending on the metric, if I'm measuring by how many people are watching, even then I'm actually getting some validation there. So many more people watching than I could have imagined. And that's actually feeding my ego. But more than that is I'm noticing myself in my own shift. I'm noticing my excitement to come do this. Every morning, it's almost like the first thing that when I'm actually there, I want to do. Now, the last few mornings, I've been sleeping in, like this is the latest that I've started these videos. I don't think it's because the videos, though, I'm feeling a little bit off kilter, off center. And there's something else to resolve. So what else is there? Gratitude, first of all, let's start with that. So grateful for this life. So grateful for my life right now. So grateful for my family. So grateful for these moments. So grateful for these possibilities. Like right now is an exciting time to be alive. Whether it's thinking about like first contact with aliens, whether it's thinking about a complete reform of science, technology, whether it's a complete reform of the financial system, whether it's this whole idea, and I love this, it's like everyone that I met, and I was doing this too, judging, going, they are less than. I won't deny that because I think it's a lie to try to deny that for me. It's a lie to deny that for me. Like the whole idea of, oh, that kid is, I'm gonna say this word, retarded, like there's something wrong. Versus, wait a second. What are the undiscovered gifts that are here? What is it that their body has given them a guidance towards? They may not be able to express the same way. And that, what if those children with Down syndrome as well, who are born with Down syndrome, there's some other unexpressed gift that we haven't understood, and over again. And part of them is the expression I've always heard from people who work with people with Down syndrome is that they've got such a joy about them. Like when they're joyous, like that joy, that love, that appreciation is so there. And can you imagine looking at life through their eyes? It's probably that whole sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns, right? And what if that's the energy they're here to put into the place? And for me, I'm wondering, how do I partner with some of these individuals, especially the ones with telepathy, inside the ceremonial, inside the container context where they can actually add to the containers and actually be compensated for that too. So it's not just how do you survive, but how is this a thrival thing? It's a valuable skill. It's an ultra valuable skill, actually. I mean, I'm recognizing that my skill is the ability to speak, to think, to bring it together. And in no one of the skills have I ever found like I'm like literally like the best. And it's okay. And part of my gift is the humility to say, how do I guide people and elevate people even beyond what I'm doing without feeling like, oh my God, I'm missing out? How do I invest in things without taking them over? And then really own the thing that I want to have, which is this Ohana Sage, Ohana breath right now. And taking a look back over and over again what I'm doing. So Ohana breath, every 2 weeks we're doing a breath where in an ideal world, I'm guiding people back into a safe space, back into a space of letting go of the active belief, back into a space where they can actually be remembered. Just taking a little time for myself can change everything, and feeling safe enough to return. And I'm just noticing now, I've got a young man right now who I've been investing some time and energy in trying to get him to say yes to himself. And then as he steps away, part of me, the practice to let go of trying, because this is his life. And I can feel that there's a pull there right now going, oh, just send him something else. Like, let it go. Can I focus on me right now? Can I just notice what I've learned from each step? Someone else who asked me about some coaching stuff, I'm like, oh, I see pathways. I'm like, let it go. I don't know better than them. And with this breath, how do I invite more people to it? How do I get more clear on what it is? How do I get more clear on the creation of this? So there's the Ohana breath. And really, I want this regularity. Like I actually want to do it more regular, probably, if anything. But I'm not doing it because there's a part that hasn't figured out how to actually make this more worthwhile, because I don't want to do more of it without having solved the piece of what is it that's going to actually get people to come back, right? Most people are having these profound experiences, right? I imagine them to be having some profound experiences. Has this been a worthwhile use of your time? And whether it has or whether it hasn't, we'd love to hear from you. It's okay if it hasn't been. And perhaps I'll hear from people, it's like, it's just that it's almost too much. It's too long. It's too big an investment. In which case, bringing it down to 90 minutes may have been the answer, right? It may be that people like 2 hours is too big a commitment. I love that flexibility to play. It's my desire to have that spaciousness, but it's meeting people where they're at right now. So we'll see. We'll play with this. All right. And then leading to this work that I'm doing with Ohana Sage, like over and over again. And as I was talking to my dear friend Courtney yesterday when we were doing a podcast, it's like, oh yeah, there's so many possibilities. There's so many things that we've been through. Each of us have been through different containers, not right or wrong. The first thing I did was just experiment and be gifted different kinds of medicine. And be like, oh wow, this is this experience. This is this experience. That's kind of cool. And then now actually being like, what is it that I actually want to do? How do I want to set it up? And for myself, it's like, okay, I really want to set it up so it's not just about this one-day event. And even that one-day event, I'd created it from being like a one-on-one, for example. A lot of people do one-on-one because it's more accessible, affordable too. I'm like, no, I want to have at least two-on-one where it's like me plus someone else supporting one participant. I've had as much as four-on-one. Can you imagine being surrounded, seen by 4 people, and like how there's a part of myself that happens like this, and there's a part of others. It's like, I don't deserve all this attention. It's too much. I don't want to make this change. I feel like I should just give up. And that's part of it. It's like, you got all of us here. The excuses are just the excuses. And part of it for me when I curate my spaces, like it's a safe enough space to say literally anything. Literally anything. It's magic. It's a magical space. And just be in the magic of it all. 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 Being in the magic of it all. Being in the magic of it all. I'm just thinking right now, because my mind went to thinking about money and investing in a property that would be possibly for retreat stuff, and then how to do it so that I can actually have use of it. Oh, I'm gonna pause things for a second. Hello, good sir.